Hi everyone, good morning. In recent years, I have been seeing lot of talks and lot of discussion in the forum about Linux monitoring in the different view. Particularly, dynamic tracing is creating lot of good noises in the community. Even though it is developed very long back, it is recognized recent years and lot of big organizations, a lot of open source community people contributing towards the dynamic tracing. So I think why don't we give our contribution as from MyDBOps and share the knowledge to the community. So I like to decide that let make a talk about Linux performance monitoring versus legacy tool and the dynamic trace monitoring. So very little quite different what I made in my talk is this talk is not just going to cover about history of BPF or dynamic tracing or what is the way of installation, what are how you need to type your code to develop your own tool. This talk is not going to cover that, but as an administrator, as a DevOps sec, or any engineer in the infrastructure who always need to use the tool. So I plan to develop my talk in this way, like how to use the tool, how to use the observation, how to use the metric, how to understand the thing. So this topic is wholly help to get an overall picture. What are the dynamic tracing tools or monitoring plugins which is available in the community and how can I use it? So, and also I'm going to have a hands-on. I believe it may be quite interesting one. I hope everyone can enjoy it. So, uh, so myself, I'm an open source technology guy. I'm interested in performance engineering, MongoDB, DevOps and DevOps practices. I'm the CTO of MyDBOps IT solution. So as a MyDBOps as a company, we are doing consulting and managed services. We primarily focus on three open source database like MySQL, Mongo, and Postgres, which is the top open source database available in the market. As a company, we are serving for 400 plus client in last 4 years. Flipkart, Swiggy, Yulu, Nykaa, Dream11 are our very highly tuned clients. We are helping them to scale their database and a lot of things in the way of productivity, performance, scaling, lot. So today the agenda of the talk is I'm going to segregate this talk in three topic like introduction, what are the methodologies which is available for the performance monitoring, and finally Linux performance analysis tool. So introduction, goals of performance monitoring. So what is the goal actually doing a performance monitoring mean? It's like to improve the performance for the end user. That means we are giving a good experience as well as the cost. In the business perspective, we need to also maintain the cost of the system as well as deliver the end user performance without compromising anything. So whatever we are doing as a performance monitoring, we need to measure that, right? So in the way of performance monitoring, I'm putting five metrics or five parameter measurement value you always consider in the performance monitoring. The utilization, cost, throughput, rate, and latency. The every metric or the every measurable values have a good meaning. We need to understand what it is giving us, and then only you can give or deliver the good performance monitoring, understanding from the tool or whatever the plugin you are using for your day-to-day troubleshooting. So methodologies. So the methodologies, when we are talking, there is always anti-methodology and proper performance methodology. This methodology will be used by in different platform, but in the performance monitoring, infrastructure performance monitoring, also come into anti-methodology. In anti-methodology, I'm going to highlight three funny and even I did it in my some day later or some in my past experience in my past job. I will fall into this anti-methodologist things like first one is street light anti-method. Streetlight anti method is one good thing. Like it's not good thing. What I mean, it's a funny thing. Like whenever issue come to us, or when I'm getting any notification like the server is CPU spike or something like it, people you can plainly see that people use very obvious tool which they know very good enough. So they use the tool and they try to troubleshoot the issue with what they know instead of understanding the high level or understanding the core issue what you are facing. So they look for obvious issue what they know. So it's simply like you have some knowledge, you're trying to put knowledge toward that issue and try to understand that won't scale, right? It always every issue have their own use cases and natural, so you need to understand the issue. So this is called street lane anti method. And the second one is drunk man anti method. Damn sure in everyone in the infrastructure will come around this drunk man anti method. What people usually do when they get the issue, the error or warning message they will be followed. They just copy the error or warning message and put it into the Google or any search engine, and they search it. Lot of recommendation will be given from lot of forums or blogs or blah blah something. Lot of things. People try to copy the just without understanding anything. Just copy that variable or any recommendation like tune this, tune that, uninstall this, install this. So they blankly understanding the core issue, they just copy the recommendation given by other people, they just paste it in the system or they just apply the setting in the system. It will be very disaster then. Some cases it will help, but it will always put you in the most worst situation in your day-to-day work. So drunk man anti method is one of the very riskier anti method which is in the methodology we are doing every day. So and another one is blame someone else anti method. This is absorbed by a lot of people, some developer or someone from some other team, they come and complain that my DB is not connecting, my user account is not logging. When they tell as a DBA what people will say in the case, I think this is related to network issue, you need to talk with network department. Without even see the error or without seeing the error log, anything, they simply saying that they just point someone to solve this issue. Then it will go to the DevOps team or DevOps team or any network department team. They will take that and they will try to analyze, and then later that point that guy also finds someone, it's look like that, and finally again it come to the debate, they tell that everything is correct, I think they relate, then he sit down and troubleshoot the issue and fix the issue. This is called blame someone else anti method. So guys, so these are the anti method. I'm damn sure you all observe this. If suppose you missed it, I recommend when you are troubleshooting someone, you just see what that guy is doing. Maybe that guy may be fall in any of these three categories. That means we need to correct it and we make our team into good way of performance handling. So I'm also going to share what is the proper performance methodologies which is available in the market. So workload characterization method, drill down analysis method, use method, and red method. You can ask, Manoj, why I need to use this methodology? So right, you're right. Methodologies always narrow down your work, pinpoint what is the problem. You have some steps to follow, so you cannot be diverted by some other things. So methodology is always good thing to fix the issue or problem solving things. Methodologies always work because you can narrow down and you will be very focused. So that is the important point of using methodologies in the problem solving skills. So first we are going to see workload characterization method. I think 99% of company in the industry will damn sure using this workload characterization method knowingly or unknowingly. Suppose in case we have a alerting system, anything in Nagios, Icing, anything will throw the alert, like I'm getting load alert, load alert. So then what we will do, who causing this load alert? For example, MongoDB is causing the load alert. What is the PID? So okay, then we go a little deeper, then we will check why the load is called. Then we find that some slow query or some collection scan query which is running in the database. So what causes the load? Then we will go and ask our development team, guys, did you release any recent code? Any recent releases happened in the application? They say, hi Monish, yes, we did a recent release without any system performance recommendation or any index analysis. Then we will say, guys, this recent release have fired a lot of collection scan query, so the server load is spiked. Please revoke the release and put it back to the previous state. Then we will do the recommendation when we do the analysis. So this is called as a workload characterization analysis. You can easily narrow down the issue, right? You got the load alert, you analyze the issue, then you find who caused the load and why caused the load and what is the load. So what is the load is the matter, like the load is the demand. We are going to see a little more deeper in the upcoming slide. So whether disk is causing or network is causing or memory is saturating something, what is the load, that means the resource, what I mean. So finally we found the issue and we give the recommendation. This is called workload characterization analysis method. Drill down analysis method. The drill down analysis method I personally use for very peculiar problem like memory leak or something like security related problem, something like that. So whenever for example, I'm in the database world and other security things, I can easily fall down with very few scenario like database occupies some memory and you won't release it. People always complain. So workload analysis method help to find the root cause, but we cannot go much deeper into that. So here I need to apply the drill down analysis method. We need to understand the problem. We need to break down the problem into small chunks. Then we need to solve the problem one by one with the appropriate tool. Finally, you find the exact root cause of the issue. So the drill down analysis is, you can solve the day-to-day problem, but when you are handling a peculiar problem like memory leak, CPU kind of issue, or any network things happening at the very deep system, so this drill down analysis method will help as much as possible with the appropriate tool. The finally use method. Use method is one of the interesting method which is introduced by my guru Brendan Gregg, is from Netflix. I don't know if everyone, I'm sure that everyone in the infrastructure world know about Brendan Gregg. I don't need to give a big introduction for that guy. He introduced the method called use method. I feel like the use method is another version of workload characterization method, because there are four way of handling four things we need to look into the workload characterization method. Use method we are just compressed and make it as a 3. First we will get a utilization issue, then based on the issue we go the saturation, and you need to check the error, then we find the root cause of this. This kind of methodology will help to solve the problem and narrow down the problem instead of randomly searching, randomly fixing the issue, something like that. So how we can use this method is, you can develop your monitoring system, you are developing your Grafana. Using this kind of method will help your infrastructure team or DevOps team or database team to narrow down the issue, and lot of learning will be cut down, lot of productivity will be improved. So I recommend, I think the use method, Grafana graphs template are already available in the Grafana open source templating world. So you can just search it and you can plug into your Grafana system. Finally, we come to the exact place like Linux performance analysis. So here I like to share, I'm going to divide this topic into 4 parts, like CPU analysis, memory analysis, and VFS, virtual file system analysis, disk analysis. So each part I'm not going to discuss all the tools what I have used or what I like. So instead of that, I like to focus on only few of my favorite tools which I will use in my day-to-day operation. And I also my team, I recommend to use these tools when you are analyzed. So I got to share this. So I think everyone comes to some OS concept book, not like this, guys. But whenever you are handling a Linux troubleshooting, right, whatever troubleshooting, I always recommend you need to imagine. Whenever issue come, I always tell my team, get a visualization, just like that. just bump up the visualization, put the problem into the visualization, narrow down the issue, the dot tools. So simple system design, we need to be always need to be keeping the mind, like we have a CPU, we have a core, and we have a shared cache in between memory controller. These are the components will be make you trouble or saturated or utilized in one another way. So we need to understand this CPU architecture. So whenever data is coming to the system, this will be touched by the data or the process or the instruction of the program which we inserted, which we executed in the system. So whenever you're troubleshooting, I recommend to keep this visualization in mind, then put your problem into the system, then find out where the problem is exactly landing. From that point, you need to use the tool. I basically, if network people will easily resemble this, what I'm trying to say, when they get into the network problem, they always put the OSA layer, and what layer it is attacking, they will track down the problem there, and they use the particular utility to that layer, and they troubleshoot it. This is some kind of that strategy. So as I told, right, in this talk, I'm not going to cover all the monitoring tools which is available, but I like to share what are the tools, what are the layers are there in the Linux system, what are the tools you can apply for the particular layer and observe how it is working, what is happening, what is the real problem. So this is one of the observability tool snapshot, and it is also created by Mr. Brendan Gregg. As I told, right, BFS is one layer, file system, this, so you can understand it easily. So you can, I just borrowed this from his website. You can also go to his website, and that link will be in the image also. You can have good blogs over there also. So this is one of the this is one of the good image which represent all the tools which is developed by EPF tools. So finally, we come for a CPU observability tools. So I quite believe that most of the people will be familiar with the first command, top. The very interesting point is I love top command. Why? Because whatever the issue come, I first execute the command is top, because top command will help me to get the clear understanding what is happening in the system. So if you need to understand it clearly, you need to have a very clear picture or clear understanding what each individual metric is trying to say. So that is the place, if you understand it, you can narrow down the issue and you can travel from that point to till the root cause analysis. As I told, this talk without demo, how can we finish it? So next we are going to demo. So maybe I can help you to understand a little much better. I hope the screen is visible for everyone. If you have any problem in viewing screen, please raise your hand. So guys, you are seeing the top command output. The top command, you need to go to terminal and type top. I'm seeing the top command output. So guys, here I'm not going to be take you in every point, but I like to pinpoint a few important things. This place is very important point for me personally when I am observing some issue. Basically, I start from here, load average. What does load average mean? Load average is trying to tell you how much demand your CPU is having. CPU is having demand in the mean how much process are in the ready state to use the processor to execute its instruction. That is very important point. Another very important difference in the load is load also in Linux, load also add uninterruptible sleep process in the load average. So the thing is, if I am having one core, if I have so for example, if you have a 5 core, if I have a 5 load, that means I'm handling the system in neck to neck. So 5 process coming into the CPU and 5 process is waiting for me. So I need to finish this, and I need to put the 5 process in the CPU. So this is like I'm loading my system. So I need to improve the system through the tuning, or I need to upscale the instance. This is the point. Then what is the CPU utilization? CPU utilization is the CPU cycle we are having, how much percentage of a particular time we are utilizing the CPU. Kernel people will easily know we call as a tick time in kernel. Every tick time is called this tick time is called the process use the CPU cycle. In the same measurement, you can see here CPU utilization is divided. Sorry, guys. CPU utilization divided into nearly 8 categories. Like first one is user utilization, system utilization, nice, ideal, wait, hardware interrupt, software interrupt, still. The point here, what I'm trying to say is, if I'm running a MySQL, I'm running a MySQL, which is some user process. If my MySQL is executing a lot of query, in that case, user process will be increased. In the same case, MySQL trying to fetch data from the disk, then it is converted as a system call. In that place, system usage will be increased. The nice process is people know basic Linux understanding, so I don't like to give. If you give a nice priority high, if that process is using more CPU, you can see that your nice process is utilizing. Ideal means here you can see 99.8% my CPU is quite ideal, not doing anything. So we will make it busy, don't worry. Then the next is wait. Wait means my CPU, I have a process which enter into the CPU and it executed few instruction and it requested for some data. So it is sending the request to DMA and a lot of stories that it's plainly we will put straight away. It's sending request to the disk. So till the requesting data reach the CPU, it is waiting, right? So instead of doing actual business in the CPU cycle, it's just waiting. That is called a wait. So hardware interrupt, software interrupt, this all different scenario. And still, if you are working nowadays, everyone in the cloud environment or in one another way, they will be hypervisor. If your guest OS is, if you are in hypervisor, you are running two instances. One instance is sucking CPU from another instance, that is called steal. So if you're seeing steal, you need to escalate to the hypervisor team or the cloud team, they will handle this. So using this, you can clearly understand who is consuming my CPU and what it is. It is a CPU process, it is a user process or system process. You can narrow down the issue. The another thing is how much memory I'm using. Like what is my total memory? What is the free memory I'm having? What is used and what is buffer and cache? Buffer and cache is one of the interesting things I will share in the memory part. But here, as you see guys, in a single command, I can see the whole system health quite enough. I'm not telling it give a very good understanding, but it's a good place, right? Good place to start out troubleshooting. So load average, CPU utilization, memory utilization, done. We understand a few important things. So you can see the image what I showed, system design, right? You can see it, you can visualize the code. Another important thing is top command output always sort the output by default by the CPU utilization. So you can also see whichever the process, and see which process is consuming more CPU in the easy way. So once I executed the top command, I can get this high level picture. This is the way this is my style, how I use the top command. I go to the next command based on the input given by the load average. It's like I always work like a pipe. Input of one command, output of one command is going for the input of another command. So the next command is mpstat-p all one. Here, one important thing, before that, let me simulate the load. I recommend whatever I'm doing it, don't try this in your production environment. Maybe you can simulate this kind of load testing, anything in your laptop or testing environment, because it will affect your server. So then it is on your risk. Okay. So I created a few tools for simulate this issue. So let's create bash short-lived jobs. Okay, you see guys, I'm executing something. I have executed some code. You can observe that the load average is bumping up. You can see before it is 0.0, now it is 0.15. It's coming up. You can see CPU utilization is going from 0 to 41%. The interesting part here is I can see load, I can see the CPU utilization, I can understand the CPU utilization done by some system user process. I don't have much demand on the system process. I mean that in total CPU utilization, 40% of CPU utilization consumed by my user process. Okay, it's everything clear. Some user processes uh, attacking my CPU and using my CPU cycle, but I don't know which process. Here I cannot see only bash, and it is also taking 1%, SSD 0.7%. But what is happening? No issue, right? So yeah, right. The thing is, top command have some disadvantages. Top command don't find or don't have a capability to capture the short-lived job. What do you mean by short-lived job? It come, solve the business purpose, die. Come, solve the business, die. So that is the short-lived. But in Linux, every fork is a very costlier process. Yeah. People who have good understanding in the OS concept may maybe imagine that picture, how the each individual process is creating a lot of footprint in the system. So a top is a command. You can see, just watch what it is happening. You see, I'm creating a lot of Python process, which is executed very frequently, which is spiking my CPU, right? So that is a culprit who is running in my system and creating the CPU issue. I need to find this is the proper business requirement. If it is not, I need to escalate my application team. Hello, application team. Yeah, you have application deployment. The deployment creating a lot of short-lived processes, which creating that. Maybe this will be very much frequently observed by the people who is in the CI/CD pipeline, which create a lot of short-lived processes and create a lot of noise in the pipeline system. So let's close this and see what I did in my script. Let's clear. Nothing, it's quite simple script I have created. You see, I just put a while loop. I just fork 3 Python process with print function. That's it. So every iteration I'm creating 3 Python script, which creating a lot of noise in my system. You can see now the CPU utilization get down to 2.6%. Even now it is 0.2. So what I'm trying to share here is, even top command have some limitation. We cannot conclude that we got our input from the top. There is some gap in the top that also I like to highlight here using this demo. Then another important point I like to highlight here is that what we start in the npstat -p all 1. It is quite another interesting command. But what is the advantage of using this command is, it will give a high-level picture how my CPU load is distributed. Let again run this command and maybe you'll get a picture. You see, when after I started to run this, the total CPU usage is 41%, and one core is using 37.7, and for another core is using 44.90. That means my request is evenly distributed between the core. Why I'm telling this is, if you have a single threaded program, there are a lot of possibility that program will go and block just one CPU and try to suck as much as need instead of doing multi-threaded application. In that case, you need to narrow down the issue that one CPU is bottleneck, it is not utilizing properly the whole system. So this is the mpstat command will help to get the high level picture how my CPU distribution is happening. The next is vmstat. So vmstat also very good command. So guys, vmstat is usually used in the virtual memory places, but there is very important column which also used in the processor level, that means CPU level. Here you can see, right, this OR. This is called runnable, this OR. This is runnable process. What I'm trying to say, as I told in the load, right, the load, people able to see in the load is a ready state process, that means waiting for the turn as well as the uninterruptible sleep. But uninterruptible sleep is totally unrelated because it's related to the disk operation. So what is OR is? OR is telling what is the exact length of how many number of process waiting in the run queue is the OR. So you can easily find what is the exact number of count which is waiting in the run queue for its turn in the CPU. So this is one of the interesting command. Load is little uh, deviation having in the point, like it's also have the uninterruptible sleep process. So if I have a bad disk, that doesn't mean it saturates the CPU. It is only affecting my disk. It is not CPU. So you can come to VMstat and you can find what is the R, and you can narrow down whether it is a CPU bottleneck or it is a disk bottleneck. That is what I'm trying to say in very different way. So VMstat is one command. You can capture the exact demand on the CPU. And finally, we are landing in one of the interesting tool, EPBF. Exit snoop. What are the use of exit snoop? Exit snoop command help to capture whatever the command which is executed in the system. What are the fork executed in the system? Like if let's see here, you see, you see lot of Python fork is happening. So that it's capturing lively in the system call. So it's not creating a lot of footprint in the system. You can easily capture. I will kill this and will show different. I am initiating this exit snow and I am executing ls command. You see, ls command, whatever it is firing, it is showing that. For example, I am opening this and I am opening my script. You see, if I am executing this command, what it is calling is bash-c and executing this list pipe command, and it again it's going for this one. Finally, it also using tr command to finish this job. So while you are executing the list command, it also executing other command in the background. We can easily capture through the exit. What is the use of what is it related to? So when you are executing a process, there will be lot of child process which will be created behind. Particular child process may be creating a lot of noise in the system. You need to understand when I'm executing some program, what are the background things happening in my system. You can easily observe using exit snoop. The final, there's another thing is run queue len. One second. So what I'm doing is I'm capturing my run queue for 10 seconds for one iteration. That is what I'm saying. You can vice versa, you can change however you need. I'm again running this. As you see, you can see most of the time, this is the number of event I'm capturing in the CPU. Most of the time my run queue length is 0, so no issue, everything is cool. Whatever it is coming, it is executing in the process, it's going out. No, there is no issue with the system, so it is smoothly working. So let's create a demand here. Bash demand. I'm putting pressure in the CPU. You can see most of the time, I mean, maximum in 10 seconds, we have captured 1979 event. Most of the time, my run queue length is 9. That means most of the time, 4 ready process which is waiting in the run queue itself. You can easily capture, right? So you can observe that I have a good business application which is tested well enough, but my CPU is not handled that much because the process which is just waiting in a run queue itself, every 10 seconds I can see that 4 processes waiting in the run queue itself. That means it is not command executing, just waiting. See, when the CPU gets free, I go on run. It's just simple like that. So we create the next tool is, so now we found how many processes waiting in the run queue. The next thing is how much time I'm waiting. That is very important answer we need to get right. I'm waiting, I got it. How much time I'm waiting? So that command is run queue lat. Again, 10 sample once again. Let's create this stress. So you see, this is in the microsecond. If you need, you can also use -m. Maybe I will use -m. You can see nearly 60 millisecond. I'm just waiting in the run queue itself. It's a beauty, right? 60 millisecond is quite quite disaster time when my clients are complaining about query is running slow. 60 millisecond, I'm just waiting my in the run queue itself. So the next thing is, now we got number of process waiting in the run queue. Now we found how much time it is waiting. Then we need to see what process, how much time. That is one of the very interesting. Run queue slower. Let the top. Maybe you can get picture. Sorry, guys. I'm creating demand. I'm creating process. You can see. You see, some program is called test, which is running very frequently, and it is microsecond. This is the process ID, which is pending 12,083 microsecond in the run queue. So this process, this PID, just spending this much time in the run queue. So this is quite good enough engineering to troubleshoot the issue. So guys, using this, you can easily understand overall how much my process is spending just a time in the run queue. So I believe this is quite interesting info for everyone. So the next thing is, so I'm closing this. The final command. Now we saw that load, CPU utilization, what is the run queue length, latency, which process is spending how much time in the run queue, blah, 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 lot of things. Here, this all information before CPU, what I'm doing actually in CPU, how much time I'm spending in the CPU, that is the important question, right? I have some tick time, how much time really is matter for me. So really I'm using my CPU effectively, that also can be absorbed by CPU disk tool. This tool people normally called on CPU observing tool. On CPU observing tool. So whatever the tool we saw just before is called off CPU. This is called on CPU. When I am observing this, I'm also creating better. I will use short distribution, short-lived job. Okay. You can see my process 8 microsecond, nearly 8,000, 4,000 to 8,000 microsecond. I'm using the CPU. So I'm just coming, I'm doing my work and going within. So I'm not using my CPU perfectly because the traveling of process to reach here is very costly. So whenever we reach the CPU, we need to reach the CPU very effectively. But here, what I'm doing, I'm putting lot of process running, short-lived process, which instead of giving a good enough amount for other process, it's coming and wasting lot of time in run queue and holding lot of spaces in run queue. Other effective business processes are waiting because of this process, and it's going for CPU. It just echo and coming out, echo coming out. That means it's delaying other process in other way, and it's also not using the CPU effectively. This is the finding of. So CPU disk also help to find off disk. You can use help command, and you can get lot more info from this. lot of info. When you use -o, you also get off CPU, like whatever rank you lane or something like we saw, right? You can get that info. Guys, these are the command I will use to understand or observe my CPU when I am falling into some CPU issue. The next, we are going for memory. We don't have enough time, so I am not able to share most important things or like other commands. The next thing is memory observability tools. Basically, I am damn sure people will use free command. For anyway, I don't like to leave it. I like to add it to adding some more few important point in the free command. People sometimes miss. Sorry. Okay. Guys, when you are seeing this, here you can see buffer and cache. What is the buffer and cache is totally related to the disk cache and disk buffer, which is used by the operating system. Whenever you are accessing some data, it always asks a buffer used by the application, or you can call simply called MySQL in world, people call InnoDB buffer. In Mongo world, myself I call it is a white tiger buffer cache. So whenever MongoDB asks any data in the instruction set of CPU, it will check the L1 cache, L2 cache, and the L3 cache. Finally, it will reach the RAM. It is called the minor page fault. So minor page fault, when asked the RAM, do you have this data for me? RAM will tell, no, but I don't have that data in the buffer. So what OS will do, it will go for a major page fault. Where it will go, it will also check the buffer and cache, which is held by the disk, and it will get the data from the disk buffer and cache, and it will put it into the RAM. Then it will be, suppose even in that buffer and cache, if the data is not exist, then it is a quite long journey. You need to reach the disk to get the data. So basically what I'm trying to say here is this buffer and cache is representing the disk buffer and disk cache. So that is the information I like to tell. But other than that, everyone know what is total, what is used, free, and available. Available is the addition of free RAM plus buffer and cache. Total amount is calculated as a free RAM, available RAM. And another very important thing is people have some myth. What I call it is like whenever you are seeing free RAM is very less, don't worry, available RAM is you always need to focus on available. I recommend don't use available RAM, because when you are handling high stress environment or high productivity, high traffic environment, free RAM need to be quite enough, because we don't know what surprise of connection we will get very quite enough, how much attack going to be happen, like how much query is going to come for. If some campaign is happening suddenly, which is not properly informed by the business team or the application team, we don't know. Suddenly the connection which is reaching the database or application, I will ask quite amount of RAM from the system. That time it try to release the data from the cache. The time which is not that much reasonable, OMM will be triggered, and whatever the process which is running on the system will be killed. That people will be very familiar with the name is called OMM, out of memory kill. We have a good enough buffer and cache space, but we will be killed because the time which is taken to release the memory from the buffer and cache will not be satisfied by the requirement. So that is very important. The another command is top command. Why, Manoj, you are taking top command here also? Yeah, it is one of the important things. Here, I have a top command. I'm seeing the output which is changing very frequently based on the time interval, and here I can easily observe which process is consuming more RAM, more memory. You need to press Shift M. Thus, instead of it sorting the output by CPU, it sorts the output by memory. So I can easily observe that how much memory I am occupied. Here, this RSS, this RIS, right? This is the exact amount of RAM which is used by the process. People always ask from the business team or the managerial team. They always Manoj, what is the MongoDB? How much memory exactly which is used by MongoDB? You always need to use this REST. Don't use fetch, which is the swap value as well as the actual amount addition which come to the point. But if you need to observe what is the exact amount used by the particular process, you need to use this REST column, resident memory column. So that is one point I like to highlight. Then PMAP. Okay. Okay. So top command I will go again, Shift PM. So let's take a top. Okay. pmap -x 15622. You can see here, right? PMAP will take the total memory allocation, the memory address, how much it is allocated for each memory address, what is the RSS size, what is the dirty it is having. So what are the this all loaded in the memory. This library. This is the anonymous page which is occupied by the CPU. Occupied by the process. So this you can easily get a pictorial information if any. What is the exact memory map or memory which is allocated to the process, how much, which memory address, all the information you can easily capture. To this tool may be used in the drill down analysis method when you are handling like memory leak kind of issue, something like that. Okay, pmap done. And vmstat. Okay, vmstat. Here I like to share a few important things, like whatever we saw in the free-yam on top, the same buffer and cache will become, and another one is swap. Suppose in case you are using swap in your environment, nowadays after everyone reached cloud, most of the people are not using swap. I too don't recommend the swap, because it is in the disk, and another way you are saturating your disk in one another way. And nowadays devices are very cheaper in the cloud, so swap. I don't think nowadays much people using swap. If you are using swap, you can observe the swap inbound, outbound of data coming from swap to memory, memory to swap through the vmstat command. That is the one important point I like to highlight here. And then is SAR-B. That is interesting, guys. SAR-B one. So SAR-B command will help to understand what is the paging operation which is done in the system. For this, I'm having one interesting demo. Short living job is first demo. Okay, let's see. People, if very good at the voice concept, they know when you are creating a process, it need to create a page table for that, and it need to load the page information from the shared buffer or shared cache, or it need to create the information to the address table, something like that, right? You will observe it. You can see that page fault. This is minor page fault. Now it is 0, right? After creating short-lived process, you can see the fault is happening more. That means a page is created for a memory. You're trying to load the information. You don't have information. You try to capture from the RAM. Maybe other library may be loaded for the process. That means the minor page fault will be more. What is the problem for the major failure? CPU context will be happen. You can see this vmstat. You can see context switch will be more. Average it is 54 overall. Now after this load is created, you can see 634. What it is actually trying to tell you is, instead of CPUs, instead of doing actual business process, it's trying to switch, command switch. I told you, right? Run queue. Spend less time in the CPU, coming out less time, something like that. You can get, now again you see the context switch is going get down. So this is quite interesting. Let again play this. So the another important thing I like to share is, so people understand page fault and major page fault. Everyone know when RAM also not able to answer the requested data, it will go for major page fault. It need to get data from the disk cache or actual disk. That is another story. So now what I'm going to see, the page scan, right? Let's create demand on the disk. What is the code? Okay, mem demand is the script. What I'm going to do, mem demand. I'm going to create mem demand. You see, what is the mem demand is, what is page scan? First, you need to understand. Whenever a page table is happen, it always search for a new space in the memory. So what I'm trying to do is, let open the code. Maybe you will understand that mem demand. What I'm trying to do here is, okay. First, I'm creating 1 GB of file, and I'm reading the 1 GB of file, or I'm I'm doing a hash value of 1 GB of file every iteration 5 times, that time it need to read that file and it need to create a hash value for the file. That means it loading a 1 GB of file in the disk. Every one iteration, it need to find a space for the 1 GB of file. So no space available. My RAM is let free-g. My RAM is sorry, free-, yeah, my RAM is just 1 GB. So it don't have enough space for the data. It is getting trickier in virtual paging concept. You know much enough understanding how it is demand paging is happening. It is kind of demand paging. I'm doing here, guys. Bash demand paging. You can see. So page scan is happening once again. Once again, then it is reading, it will create. Okay. It is quite different. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, that is the concept what I'm trying to represent. The page scan will scan the space to allocate a memory, scan the page to allocate a memory for a new process. That means you have more pressure on the memory. You need to increase your memory, or you need to kill, or you need to terminate some process which is occupying more memory, which is not related to the business. So the three important thing: fault and page scan is important. I believe I'm done with this memory. So the next thing is file system observability. Before going for file system observability, people need to understand the Linux kernel IO stack. This is the picture of a very high level system, like application rich VFSs. VFSs in the virtual file system. Then it will ask the related data. It will go for a page cache. That is the buffer and cache which is seen in the free-run. Then it will go for the mapping layer. Then it is go for the actual block layer. Then it will reach the block layer. This is the high level. So when you are handling the disk related issue, you need to just see this picture in your mind. So this is the file system cache level. VFS, there will be. So people always through echo 3 greater than symbol like proxies, VFS, drop cache. I think everyone remember this 3. So what it will do, it empty this page cache and a directory cache, inode cache. People know what is inode and directory. So it will flush all the directory inode cache information. So the buffer and cache will be freed and it will be released to some other process, and it automatically again refilled by the OS, because very frequently you are accessing the system, right? So this 2 block diagram you need to keep in mind when you are troubleshooting this issue. What I'm going to do, the next thing is, people always use very familiar with the iostat command, iotalk command. They always, the legacy tool don't support to understand the virtual file system troubleshooting. So here we are going to see the virtual file system troubleshooting. Clear the screen. Clear the screen. Let demand create demand. Okay. If a start. So here I'm saying actual call of, so in basically in the VFS file system, we have read call, write call, create, open. It's normal C program, like we'll F open, F close, file open, file. Same thing in the kernel. When you are doing that F open, F close, it actually calling the system call, read syscall, write syscall. The actual kernel syscall is happening in this inside the system. So till now we don't have a good enough tool of legacy tool don't support this kind of observability, but very lucky that we are having this EPF kind of observability tool. What actually doing this, what kind of system call creating a lot of noise. So when you see that, you see I'm creating lot of read operation. So after creating this 1 GB file, I'm doing lot of read, right? You can see that I'm doing lot of read operations is called. So now we find my IO is increased, IO load is increased. I can see, I don't know whether it is a read or I write, but we can see this read and IO in the disk block layer, but I don't know which system call is doing. Now we got it. So we have a read kind of thing. Let's clear this. Next time is open Snoop. Let me come to the detail, more detail I will capture. So you can easily understand which system call is doing this noise, read or write or something like that. The next command is open Snoop. So what are the a file which is very opening very frequently in the system? If you see open file, ls open, you can see a lot of open files and see. But if you need to monitor very lively what is exactly happening in the system, you can use this open Snoop command, and we need to see what service or what command which opening which file or whatever it is, and you can easily trace that also. And catch is that. Catch is that, right? As I told in this here. So I'm having a page catch. Here I'm having a page catch in the virtual facing level. We need to get that my program like MongoDB or MySQL doing a major page fault. Anyway, I don't need to go to disk. I need to get my data as little from the disk cache itself. That is quite enough good journey. If I'm going for everything, I'm going for a disk, that is very bad, something which we did in our system. We need to improve our system through tuning in some other way. So we need to see how much page cache or disk cache we are doing in the system. Here you can see in most of the places I'm getting 3 hit, and most of the data which is coming from the disk cache itself. So this is quite interesting thing. One second, let's simulate. Okay. I think VS Stat I have some demo. Okay, fine. Okay. You see, I'm hitting 700, but my hit ratio is 0.60. That means my application trying to read some data which is not available in my cache, only 0.60% I'm hitting my cache. Remaining all data, I'm going for a disk to get the data. This is the poor performance. So this is the guys you can observe what actually happening in my cache level. That means VFS cache level, not your White Tiger or Mongo. I know InnoDB buffer level. I'm actually talking disk cache level. This is quite interesting tool you can observe. This is cache stat, and another one is cache top. So here, this is also like a top command. We can see what exactly happening here. You can see that this program hit 1, and most of the read is getting from the disk itself. Here I'm using catchy top. What is this command name? Name demand. Here you see. Let's create this again. You see, some DD program read only 25% of data. This DD, you know that I'm using DD command here. It's trying to read the data, but only 20% of read is getted from the disk cache. So you can easily find your process, your service, whether actually using the disk cache efficiently or not. So this tool or use narrow down your issue, fix your issue, had to solve the problem with higher level of observability. I'm closing this, clear the screen, and ext slower, xfs slower. Guys, these tools, right, you can find the system call which is happening at the file system level. I don't like to have more demo on this. You can just run and you can find the observability, what system call or what program which is exactly slowing down your file system level systems. So the final thing is disk IO observability. In the disk IO observability, I'm going to start with, so guys, VFS, then block layer. This command, all command, whatever we are seeing is in the block layer. So IO stat, first we are going to start. Let's clear the screen. IO stat X Z D 1. Okay, let's run. Here I like to share few important things to you. So this will tell how much read operation I'm doing, how much write operation per second I'm doing. So let's clear this. Write operation I'm doing, and you can also see R weight, W weight. R weight and W weight is an important metric. This is the legacy tool. So this is what information we are getting here. So here RS, WS, R weight, W weight. Okay, one second. R weight, W weight, run queue size, write run queue, read run queue utilization. So what these metrics are very important with the IO stat. So if I have a utilization 100, you can add R plus WS. When your utilization 100, you can put R plus W. That means here I having 100 IO read and 100 IO read. So your disk will support 200 IO operation. That means simultaneously your disk only handle maximum of 200 IO operation per second. That is the maximum limit. Other whatever request which is coming to the disk will be wait. So what is R weight actually? What is W weight? You mean you can see like that. What is the time actually waiting in the disk queue, not in the VFS queue, OS scheduler queue. It is a disk queue. How much time I'm spending? So you can, if I'm spending more amount of, you see, I'm spending 16.79% of time in the disk queue, right queue itself. Waiting in a queue. Here queue size is 0.2. So the utilization is 4. What I'm trying to say is you can get a block level layer of utilization observability through the IO stat. We can simulate something here. Maybe you'll get a picture. You can see the disk spike here. You see. So I'm going for read 1722. That means my IOPS may be 2000 per second. I can handle 2000 IO operation per second because I have reached 80% of utilization. So my await time is still very less. I'm performing good, but I'm reaching. So at a time, my disk can handle 2000 operation per second. This is a Mac laptop. So underlying, I'm having SSD. My SSD have a capability of handling 2000 IOPS per second. That is good enough. If you are going for HDD, maximum it may be reached 300 IOPS, then it is exhausted. Your total read and write operation will be slowed down. So you can easily map this kind of scenario. We can understand the issue. You can correlate all your metrics and come together and issue. So await is increasing, means there may be you are spending more time in the waiting queue of the disk block layer itself. Okay. And you can see average queue size. The next command here is IO top. Okay, no time. We are running out of time. I'm going to perform IO top. It is quite like top command. I'm pressing IO top and you see, you got it right. You see MD5 is a command which I have used here, which is creating more 30% of IO operation. So you can observe if you have a MySQL or MongoDB, you can easily observe which program is creating a lot of disk write and disk read operation. It is not, again I'm telling, this is not a VFS level. This is the disk level, block layer level. So you can easily observe this. IO top is quite interesting tool, similar to the top command template. Then BIOS mode. Okay. So here what I'm trying to say is whatever the process, whatever the drive, whatever the operation, sector, byte, latency. So it is telling again it is latency which is spending in the total operation. So come to the scheduler discrete queue, block queue, and whatever the wait time is spent, then perform the operation. The whole request completion time is called the latency here. So the DD command, this POID, it try to read something 12 byte of information, sorry, 12,000 bytes of information. It took time for 1.4 millisecond. So this is the information it's telling us. So BIOS also quite informative tool, even though like IOTop, but it is real-time observability uh, than IOTop. Okay, and next command is bio latency. So bio latency. So I'm going to tell how much latency I'm doing. So I'm doing some read and write operation using the memdemand script. I created a file. I'm reading a file for 5 times. Let kill. So what I'm getting here is I'm reading. So my latency is 128 to 200 microsecond. I'm waiting. I'm waiting in the block queue. So I'm not doing nothing. I'm just waiting in a queue for 128 microsecond to 255 microsecond. This many event, the 14,600 event which is captured during this observation, it just simply ideally waiting in the block queue. The next command is biotop. You see, DD command, SDA, right? This is quite interesting. That's it. We can easily capture the culprit process. We can find who is creating, how many IO operation it is creating, what is the size, average second it's going to complete. So lot of things. That's it. So this is, guys, you can use this kind of tools in your day-to-day work, and you can make your job easy, observability easy. Even you can add more automation over that. And till this point, I didn't cover what command I used to install anything. So I just put it in the last slide of my last slide. Like this is the link. You can go and install that whatever that BPF tool I have used, and whatever the systat, IOTop, ATOP, this is the command. You can also use the same command, m install systat, m install IOTop, m install ATOP, and all the BPF installation which is available in the link what I gave above. Before giving a question, I like to thanks one person in the world for this knowledge, Mr. Brendan Gregg. He's my guru. So thank you, guys. You can, if you have any question, please.